In the bustling restaurant, Oliver tugged on his father's sleeve. "Dad, that waitress looks like Mom," he whispered. James turned around and froze. The restaurant buzzed with life. Glasses chimed, laughter bubbled up, and conversation filled the air. But to James, nothing registered. His eyes were fixed on the woman standing across the room. She bore an uncanny resemblance to Rebecca, same figure, identical facial features. Even her eyes carried that familiar blend of warmth and sorrow. The waitress noticed his intense gaze and offered a slight smile. "Is everything all right?" she inquired gently. Even her voice struck a familiar chord. Oliver tugged at James's sleeve once more. "Dad, she really looks like Mom." James was at a loss for words. Memories surged in his mind of the day he lost Rebecca, of standing silently by her grave, unable to accept her absence. Yet here she was, not Rebecca herself, but a mirror image of her. Who exactly was this woman? What peculiar twist of fate was at play? Collecting his thoughts, James looked at the waitress again. He needed answers. "What's your name?" he asked. The woman blinked in mild surprise. "Sophia," she replied calmly. "Is there something I can help you with?" James silently repeated the name. Sophia. But why did she look so remarkably like Rebecca? "Dad, can we talk to her?" Oliver asked, eyes wide with curiosity. James nodded in agreement. Noticing their puzzled expressions, Sophia furrowed her brow. "Are you sure everything's all right?" James apologized softly. "I'm sorry. You look exactly like someone I once loved deeply. It's almost unbelievable." Sophia tilted her head as though trying to recall something buried in memory. James's heart pounded. This couldn't be mere coincidence. Answers were needed. "I have a break coming up," Sophia offered. "If you'd like, we can talk then." James and Oliver exchanged glances. "Yes, please," he replied. They stepped out into the quiet courtyard behind the restaurant. The soft rustling of leaves and distant city sounds filled the silence. Sophia, her curiosity piqued, asked, "So who do I remind you of?" Taking a deep breath, James responded, "My wife, Rebecca. She passed away 2 years ago, and when I saw you, it felt like I was seeing her all over again." Sophia's expression shifted, as if the name sparked a memory. She quickly composed herself. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "That must be incredibly painful." James nodded, unable to tear his eyes away from her face. It was so strikingly familiar. "Dad, what if they were sisters?" Oliver whispered. Sophia's eyes widened in surprise. "Sisters?" she echoed. "No, I never had a sister. I grew up in an orphanage." At those words, James tensed. A deep internal tightening took hold. "Where were you born?" he inquired cautiously. "I don't really know," she answered. "My documents only have my name and birth date. My parents remain a mystery." James's mouth went dry. Rebecca too had been an orphan, spending her life searching for family, yet never finding a trace. When Sophia mentioned her birthday, James nearly collapsed. It was the exact same day as Rebecca's. Sophia noticed a change in his expression. "Are you okay?" James slowly nodded, though inside everything was spinning. Two women identical in appearance, matching birthdays, both raised in orphanages, and yet they'd never crossed paths. He recalled how Rebecca always confessed she felt there was someone out there, a missing piece of her heart. "Did you ever try to search for your family?" he asked. She gave a sad smile. "I tried, but there were no clues, just an overwhelming void." James wiped his face, his heart racing. He wanted to say so much more, but words failed him. Then Oliver piped up. Could Mom have been her sister? Sophia flinched at the word sister, and James looked at her. She appeared thoughtful, yet there was another glimmer in her eyes, a spark of hope. Finally, he said, "Rebecca might have been your sister." Sophia stared, disbelief and longing mingling in her eyes. "Do you really believe that?" she whispered. James nodded. "We lack hard proof at the moment, but the coincidences are too significant. Same birthday, similar orphanage background." He didn't elaborate on how much they resembled one another, but she understood completely. Gently, Sophia touched her face, as if viewing it ununit solely as herself, but as a connection to a lost relative. "Are there any childhood photos?" Oliver asked timidly. Sophia shook her head. "Not many. The orphanage seldom took pictures, and the few we had were lost during a relocation." James paused thoughtfully. We have some photos of Rebecca. Perhaps we can compare them. A glimmer of hope lit Sophia's face. Yes, she said quietly. I'd like to see them. James's hands trembled as he retrieved his phone. After scrolling through the gallery, he found an old photograph of Rebecca during her teenage years. Here, he said, turning the screen toward her. Sophia leaned in, her face paling. She stared at the picture, eyes wide and unblinking. This is unbelievable, she whispered. That's me. James gently shook his head. That's Rebecca. Yet you unmistakably resemble her. You're like two drops of water. Oliver grinned. Mom and Sophia really are sisters. Sophia traced the outline of the photo with her fingers, a storm of emotions swirling within her. If this is indeed true, why were we separated? Why did no one ever tell us? James placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We need certainty. A DNA test will settle everything. Sophia looked at him, fear and hope mingling in her eyes. Do you truly think it's necessary? Yes, he replied softly. You deserve the truth. After a long pause, she agreed. All right, I'm willing to try. Oliver clapped his hands excitedly. Yay, that means I might have another aunt. Sophia managed to smile for him, yet her eyes remained clouded with uncertainty. What if all these indications were mistaken? As if sensing her unease, James said gently, no matter what the results reveal, we're all here for you. They agreed to meet the following day for the test. That night, Sophia lay awake, her thoughts in turmoil. What if she had been wandering through life unaware of the half of her soul that was missing? Next morning, James and Oliver arrived. James carried a white envelope containing the lab referral. Are you ready? He asked softly. Sophia nodded, though her emotions roiled like a tempest within. The lab was quiet and sterile, imbued with the faint scent of antiseptic. Sophia's heart pounded, yet James's calm presence steadied her. The test was swift. Now all they could do was wait. To distract themselves from the tension, James suggested a nearby cafe. They moved to the cozy spot, Oliver brimming with energy, fidgeted with the menu. Sophia watched him, a small smile forming. Inside, yesterday she had been alone. Today she might have a nephew. She glanced at James, who too seemed lost in thought. No matter what transpired, their lives had already transformed. The days dragged by slowly. Sophia checked her phone repeatedly, though she knew it was too early, and James did the same, hiding his anxious anticipation from Oliver. Then one evening, as Sophia was finishing her shift, her phone buzzed. It was a message from James. Results are in. Her heart stilled for a moment, then began racing once more. She called him immediately. I can come pick you up, James offered in a tense yet composed tone. I'm at the restaurant, she replied. 15 minutes later, James's car pulled up. Sophia climbed in, seated beside him, and noticed the white envelope in his hands. Her fingers tightened into fists. James met her gaze silently for a brief moment, then extended the envelope toward her. Would you prefer to open it, or shall I tell you? Sophia swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on his. Tell me, she whispered. James's voice softened as he spoke. Your sisters. Sophia pressed her hand to her mouth, her breath catching in shock. A torrent of emotion flooded her. She had never truly been alone. Never had she known that she had a sister all along. Never experienced a hug, never heard her voice. Tears streamed down her cheeks unheeded. Gently, James took her hand, steady and warm. Sophia's eyes slowly opened, meeting his gaze as she realized she had discovered not just a sister, but a family. Looking down at the envelope with trembling hands, she murmured, "Sister." The word felt both achingly familiar and entirely new, as she had never uttered it aloud before. Oliver, seated quietly in the back, observed without question, aware of the significance of the moment. At last, Sophia opened the envelope. Her eyes quickly scanned the lines that confirmed what had already been spoken. After carefully placing the paper back into her bag, she looked up at James. I had no idea, she confessed. I never even knew she existed. And now it seems it's too late. James met her steady gaze. Rebecca always believed there was someone out there. She was always searching, even if she didn't know exactly for whom. Sophia wept. She was seeking me, yet never found me. "You found us," James replied softly. "You're not alone any longer." Oliver reached forward and gently laid his small hand over hers. "Now you're with us, Aunt Sophia." Sophia managed to laugh through her tears. His words shattered her sorrow like sunlight piercing through dark clouds. She was no longer isolated. She had a family. Slowly closing her eyes to let the moment sink in, she realized her life had divided into two parts, before and after, and in that after lay a promising new beginning. Oliver cheerfully declared, "So Aunt Sophia is going to stay with us forever now?" Sophia smiled at him, her heart swelling with warmth. "Forever," she promised to him, to James, and to herself. With that, James started the car, and they drove through an evening city painted in soft, fading light. Sophia gazed out the window, her thoughts drifting back to Rebecca, her voice, her laughter, her very presence. She pictured countless moments that might have been had they found each other earlier. "I'll take you to Rebecca's home," James said gently. "Everything is just as she left it, her belongings, her books, her photographs." Sophia's throat tightened. "I want to see them," she whispered. Oliver nodded eagerly. "We have Mom's albums. You'll get a glimpse of who she was." When they reached the house, James paused at the door, as if steeling himself for the flood of memories inside. Sophia stepped over the threshold and inhaled deeply. A gentle scent lingered in the air, Rebecca's perfume. James guided her to the living room, retrieved a photo album from the shelf, and handed it over. Sophia opened it slowly, her fingers trembling as she flipped through the pages. There was Rebecca smiling as a child, radiant on her wedding day, cradling Oliver in her arms. Looking at the photos, Sophia realized she hadn't lost a sister. She had simply found her within those images, in the cherished memories, and in this newfound family. Rebecca continued to live on. She kept turning the pages, pausing to absorb every smile, every captured glance. James sat quietly beside her, fully understanding that this album was more than mere photographs. It was a bridge connecting Sophia to the sister she never knew. Oliver nestled against her. "Mom was always looking for you. If she'd known, she'd never have let you be alone." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes as she embraced the boy gently, then turned toward James. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for accepting me," she whispered. James squeezed her hand gently. "We're family now. Always." She nodded, then returned to the photos. They were no longer just images. Each one evoked a feeling, a remembrance, a piece of her soul she could finally begin to mend. The emptiness within. The past was unchangeable, but the future was hers now with them. That evening, Sophia stayed with James and Oliver. They shared stories of Rebecca, shedding tears and laughter alike. With every shared moment, Sophia felt herself increasingly at home. When it was time to part, James said softly, "You don't have to leave, Sophia. You're one of us now. This is your home too." Sophia looked first at him, then at Oliver, who was dozing against her shoulder. A shiver traveled down her spine, not from fear but from a deep, resonant certainty. She smiled and nodded. "I'll stay." Oliver wrapped his arms around her as James simply nodded, understanding that everything had finally fallen into place. Sophia was no longer alone. She had a family, and ahead of her stretched a new life, one filled with love, warmth, and the comforting promise of a place to call home. Thank you for joining us for another moving story from Tales of the Heart. If you enjoyed and want to experience more emotional journeys of love, loss, and unexpected connections, please subscribe to our channel. Every week, we bring you carefully crafted narratives that explore the depths of human emotion and the bonds that tie us together. From reunited families to second chances at love, our stories capture life's most poignant moments. Don't miss our upcoming tales by clicking the subscribe button below and turning on notifications. Share your thoughts in the comments. Would love to hear which parts of today's story resonated most with you. Tales of the Heart, where every story touches the soul.